Hi everyone, welcome. What I have out here is one of my African night crawler bins that are now 18 days of age. I have two such bins. The other one is going to get fed later. That's actually bin number one. What we're starting with here today is, as you'll see from the label, bin number two. And I think last time too we fed this way too because we wanted to save the main event, if you will, which was planned for bin number one. The main event was just the addition of worms, basically. So 18 days ago when we first launched these two systems, the starting estimate worm count for this system was 1578, and in the other one it was only 1450. So when we had that opportunity last week to haul over some more worms and add some extra population to one of the two systems, it was bin number one that got those extra, now estimated to be 120 additional worms. So check out these estimated populations now. They're almost an exact match. And I guess it just so happens that if we were to relocate 4 worms from bin number 2 over into bin number 1, we would actually have a perfectly equal worm count in both systems. I was going to whip up some little food burritos for these little guys, and it's what is it here? We got potato. Figure if I'm making 6 of these, I'm going to try to divvy all this stuff up somewhat evenly, hopefully not overloading these pieces of newspaper. That seems like plenty for a nice burrito. I still need to leave enough material to load up 5 more of these. And then I think 3 will go right here into this system, and the remainder 3 will be used to feed system number 1. Now, I don't know, building food burritos for the worms doesn't seem that interesting. So I did actually capture some footage earlier when I was feeding a couple of my breeder buckets, and I'm curious to see if that footage turned out. If it did, then we're probably now watching some fast playback of some mites. Well, if the time lapses did not work, then you're just watching me make burritos for the worms. Alright, the 3 that we're giving this bin are ready. For the next 3, we'll just put them in this little to-go container. As far as bedding goes, it's a nice little boost of bedding. I'm even wondering if we might apply some other additional bedding of some sort when it comes time to feed. I guess we'll have to play it by ear and see what we see when we get there. This last one's going to be about the same size as the rest, so I think we did a really nice job divvying out the portions equally. All the burritos are more or less the same size. They all have a little piece of cantaloupe, a little piece of strawberry top, a little bit of potato. Well, a lot of potato. And this is number 3 for bin number 1. We'll set that aside, and these will be used to feed bin number 2 over here. And I don't know, do we transport 4 wormies over and level out the estimated population size of these systems? I'm very tempted. Alright, this is actually feeding number 2 for these systems. This top covering, I think, is holding up great, so I say we keep using it. We'll cover up again with this at the end. But before we can do that, we've got to give them today's feeding. Pumpkin went down the middle 10 days ago. Something tells me we're not going to see a whole lot of leftovers of that. Definitely like the moisture level in here. I did skim through the video from last time, and I do remember a lot of this leafy material. A lot of it did seem very dry, though, at that time, so we tried to blend things in. All this moisture's just got to be the leftovers of the pumpkin. I'm sure nowhere else in the bin is it this damp. So I would say each system got a good couple big large handfuls worth. So a good amount of pumpkin was laid down the center of the bin here. Good number of worms coming out to check out this stuff too. So let's just nudge them aside a little bit for feeding number 2 in burrito style. I guess one thing I could have done was I could have just sprinkled some grit into the burritos. Just as easy to drop it in here underneath the burritos. So let's start with that. 1, 2, 3 burritos packaged in a nice portion of bedding material. And guess what? In comes the new feeding zone indicator, which also includes a nice portion of coffee. A whole day's worth of coffee. You know what? I got a little bit of my worm chow left here. Let's see if we can just increase the appeal slightly of this coffee by making it that much more interesting by having it sprinkled with some worm chow. Let's see, moisture levels out here still look like they could use a little bit more moisture, especially if you're not dropping fresh foods down into there. The middle section definitely got a nice treatment of moisture from the pumpkin that was placed down the middle in the last feeding. However, out here on the edges, I could see them getting a little bit more. Maybe. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, you know what? Let's grab the squirt bottle, give them a little shot. Let's see here. I guess that'll just give me the excuse to also rinse off my gloves. Before we cover up here, keep all this material down here in the system. And oh yeah, I wanted to do the outer edges with a little bit of moisture, right? The middle I think is in great shape from moisture. Those pumpkins left behind a good bit of dampness down the center. Out here on the edges though, I think just by spraying in a little bit of extra water, we're just going to make the whole situation a little bit more cozy for the worms. Certainly can't hurt. What do you think? I think that's pretty cool. I think they're going to like it. So let's show where we last fed using the traditional feeding zone indicator. Coffee filter. And we'll keep it around as long as we can, just like this top covering. However, as the worms start to nibble away at it, as it just weakens with age, at some point it'll need to be sacrificed as bedding, but we'll see what we can do about keeping it in service as a top covering for as long as possible. So, should we? Shouldn't we? I can't resist. Let's just go for it. How hard can it be to locate 4 little volunteer worms? We were just in here feeding. Ooh, I don't want to break up the burritos there, so I kind of nudged one a little bit rough there. Hopefully I didn't put a big tear into it. But we've already managed to get 2 of our 4 volunteers that are going to be exchange students going over for the broader mission of balancing out the estimated worm count. And at this point, since I did count these individually, I'm not looking for estimates on how many I just transplanted, because I know how many it is. All right, on to bin number 1. Okay, well, this is no longer the spot where all the yummy food is, it's the other one. So let's get their food queued up. All right, I'm assuming we're going to see things that are very similar in this system, almost a matching population. And now we're going to actually do our best to see if we can even further get the populations to match as far as worm count. How is this top covering holding up? I don't know. It almost seems like it could possibly just go one more round, but it's obviously very heavily worked. But it's going to have the help of a lot of these large chunks that came in last time. These are actually the materials that I had built the little baiting box out of in order to try to round up worms out of their finished casting, stragglers that were left behind for the previous haul out. So out here, you know, I'm just questioning whether we're going to be adding moisture. I guess we could. To me, it just didn't seem quite as dry as it did in the other one, although now that I'm looking at some of it, it definitely looks like it could benefit from a little extra moisture. So we're going to definitely spray down the edges. At first, though, we're just going to check it out. I mean, there's definitely worms all over the place. You can see them all hanging out together. In certain little spots, as you encounter nice dampness, the worms are there. But since so much of it seems a little bit drier than it needs to be, I'm definitely liking the idea of spraying it down a little bit. Let's do that now. At least a little bit. Perhaps we can give it a little bit more at the end too, but it also seems like we don't have to go quite as much as the other bin got. And I could see myself even using a little bit more later to rinse off my glove and keep all this nice material down here in this system instead of accidentally hauling it out of here on my glove into the sink and wash it away. Okay. Well, this is our worm release, probably the smallest worm release I've ever done. Let's set the stage. That's it. 4 transplanted wormies over from the other system, theoretically bringing us to an equal worm count in both systems. How silly. Alright, in with their food. We'll just do it the same way we did in the other one. Seemed to work there, and it should work fine here too. That's pretty nice. Systems that are this new, I like the idea of keeping grit going into their feedings almost every time. And then later on, if I, you know, just don't happen to have any on hand, or, you know, whatever the reason might be for not giving them some, it's not too big of a deal, because in previous check-ins there's probably a pretty good likelihood that they'd already gotten grit numerous times. Alright, very nice, very nice. Alright, well, that was feeding number 2 for our 2 twin African night crawler bins, 18 days of age, getting their second feeding now. And we even gave them a little bit of moisture, which I'm sure they're going to appreciate. Now, yeah, we also had these large chunks out here too, which I thought would be kind of cool, sticking out here on the top for us to see when we come back. These large chunks that remind us that this is where we've been bringing worms over into gradually over the past couple haul outs. And we might even have an equal number in both systems now at this point. I've still got the top covering I've got to put back on here, but I think we can try to return a lot of this stuff right back down into the worm bin. Luckily it all falls off my glove quite readily. And what happened to our feeding zone indicator? There it is. I knew it was nearby. And let's see how we're going to do as far as getting one last use out of this top covering newspaper. I'm starting to wonder if it was a good decision. We're going to be a little bit shy on top covering real estate for these little guys, but that's okay. We've got makeup pieces all over the place, all these large chunks of the baiting station that are in here for them to play on too. So I think that's it. We're done. I think I could probably still get the plastic cover on without getting my hands too much more soiled. And the rest of the material can all just go right back down into the bin, right where it belongs. Alright everyone, hopefully you enjoyed the little check-in with the African night crawlers. Giving them a little burrito dinner for their second feeding on their 18th day in service. And now theoretically, 2 bins with identical worm populations. Let me know what you think about that. I'm curious to hear if people think it was a good idea. Was it a bad idea? Should I have bothered? I don't know. Somehow I think a number of you will appreciate it. I know I think it was a good idea. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. It's always really appreciated. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Bye now.